New Chaos Terminators. They just don't know it yet. We are going to start a new series. I want to build my own Chaos Warband with not so chaosy units, kit bashing and building everything by myself to be true one-of-a-kind miniatures. I figured I'd take you with me on this journey as there will be a lot of inspiration and ideas in these ones. As I like to start with the elite branches of an army, I thought the new Wolfguard Terminators were the perfect point to start. They look a little bit chaosy right from the beginning with their runes and pelts and bones and whatsoever. They just reminded me of the Slaves to Darkness range, which is still my #1 army to play and collect. We don't really need these decals. After I got myself familiar with the instructions I am totally going to ignore, I built the arms and sorted them into left and right ones. In this way I could fit them however I pleased. My goal for today is to build 3 different Chaos Terminators. The Champion. For the first one I cutted away all the Loyalist and Space Wolfy symbols and smoothed out the surfaces. First using the edge of my hobby knife and after that a very fine sanding paper. I have seen people doing this with a fiberglass brush, which looked very interesting to be honest. Haven't done it myself yet, but it seems to be very convenient. If this video is doing well, I will definitely invest in some other and better tools. As well as some milliput to create amazing bases. And after that I had the idea to cut away some of the arrows of an old Chaos Warrior's shield. Totally would not recommend it. The first attempt failed, but I still had 7 hours to try. The learning curve hit very early this time and I realized doing it very slowly might help. Which it did. Shocker, I know. After I filleted this Chaos arrow very uncleanly from the shield, I cutted it in shape and placed it on the leg of the soon-to-be Chaos Terminator Sergeant. The top of the arrow was very bare at this point, but I thought that I could cover that up with some texture paint before I prime it. The idea was set and I went on with cutting away the filthy Loyalist symbols and started the posing of his arms. He got a very classical loadout of an axe and a Stormbolter. And by the way, if you like content like this, feel free to leave a like or a subscription. I found this old world Chaos Warriors head in my bits box as well as other very chaosy bits from the old world, which I figured are just a perfect match. I found that the shouldery bits of the old world Chaos Knights are a near perfect fit if one cuts away the piston-like thingies that hold the original Terminator armor in place. Since this massive wolf's pelt is just an amazing piece that will give the sergeant lots of character, I had to include it. It gives me very Lunar Wolfy vibes and I do like that. And since I already mentioned the Lunar Wolves, I had an Eye of Horus laying around in my bits box and decided to glue it on with some super glue and green stuff. I just cut away the foot of it and created something like a spike. I guess I could have drilled through the pelt itself, but since my knowledge in this craft is just slowly starting to manifest, I just prayed to the Dark Gods that this piece will hold up at this point. In hindsight, it worked pretty well. It's sturdy and it seems durable. The very much intentional "let's flip it off the desk" test proved it. The head was smoothened on the neck joint and given a small ball of green stuff to fit into place. And with a little help of a hobby knife, I had a very menacing looking leader. The Hoplite. The idea was very simple. Build something that had never existed in the entire world and history of Warhammer. A Chaos Terminator with a huge shield and spear. Why, Games Workshop? This is the coolest thing ever! At least in my mind, a spear would work so well with these dudes. But anyway, he got a very similar treatment of let's remove all the loyalist symbols with a knife and sandpaper. I like the white stance of this guy and I wanted him to look like he's doing something cool and agile in motion with his spear being thrusted forward. But first he got a massive shield of a Slaves to Darkness exalted hero, which just fits so very well. It makes the entire miniature look chaosy right from the start. Again, some green stuff helped to hold this one in place since the Wolfguard Terminators already have arms that are dedicated to hold a shield. And by the way, this one is the one that's holding the assault cannon on the box art. Now I needed an arm for the spear, and I cut away the sword and hand without damaging the armor too much. And cut away this, to be honest, really cool double-handed woodcutting tool here, since I only need the part of the axe that represents something like a power generator. I don't want to give this one an old spear, but something that looks like an archaic power spear. So I carefully smoothened it out, and after that I cut a Varangard spear into two, with one part flying back to the model realms. Removing the second hand here as well and glued the two parts together, and I was surprised that this was actually pretty straight. I figured with his huge chaos shield, his head does not have to be so distinctively chaotic, so I just gave him a normal Terminator's head. I also figured that a normal Terminator's shoulder is a bit too bulky for this one. So I once again grabbed one of the old world Chaos Knights and glued them into place, making him look like a World Eater of some kind. So here's your idea if you needed one. For the last step I just glued on some skulls on a chain. I would love to give you the information on where I found these, but I honestly don't know anymore. They look like they belong to something Nurgly or maybe even the Slaves to Darkness kits. But anyway, after that I figured that his back looks a little bit too plain, so I got one row of spikes, making him look even more tribalistic. Solon Decius II. The Warptaint. I just recently listened to the Flight of the Eisenstein again, and I wanted the last one to look like he has had some gifts of the warp. So first I drilled some holes into the armor to make it look like general corruption, maybe something slightly Nurgly. I found an old Flesh Eater arm that had the perfect dimensions in my opinion. A little bit elongated but still very warpy and chaosy. So I cut away the shoulder joint to make him look like he lashes out or is in mid-swing. Giving him a power claw on the other hand was just the most reasonable thing to do in my mind. Since building or kit bashing at this point is as well a process like painting, I had the idea of making him look like one side is corrupted and the other side is more or less untouched. To cover the huge gap between the armor and shoulder, I once again used green stuff and I guess it is an orc knob's shoulder part that fitted very well, as it looks like he just grabbed a huge chunk of metal just to have some protection there. I gotta admit, it looks a little bit derpy at this point, but that will all work out in the end when it's painted. To give him some more extra bits, I thought a Chaos Spawn's tentacle is the perfect fit. And I just glued it on somewhere under his other arm, covering the gap with green stuff. But the miniature was not corrupted enough in my opinion, so I gave him some spiky bits, no pun intended, that seemed to jet out of his torso. After all, you never know what you get when you ask for a gift from the Chaos Gods. I created something like a corrupted surface on his shoulder, where I wanted to place a horn or spike which completed the overall look in my opinion. If you want to know how I painted these fellas, what else is to come here on this channel and how to participate in it, stay on board. When I painted Fulgrim, I realized that I really do like white Chaos Space Marines, so my color scheme for my warband was set. Something cold, off-white, with some rust and dirty Death Guard like smudgerinos. And this is an official word now. So I stippled on some wolf and cold grey, and for the trim and trim-like parts as well as the rune stones or trinkets, I used my favorite of gold, Pro Acryls Bronze. Do you remember that I said before I prime the miniatures that I will put on some texture paint? Because I didn't, so halfway done I remembered that and applied some citadels, a Grellan Earth to get some crackles in the armor. I figured I use something with a sand-like tone since it is easier to cover. Again. I painted the joints and cables of the armor with Pro Acryls Dark Silver as well as the huge cooling fans on the back. Anyway, for the pelts, straps, horns and loincloth I used burnt red and dark rust. A 50-50 mix of these give a dark, slightly red tinted brown that is an amazing contrast to the white armor. So I am thinking about a lore for my custom warband here, something like their ship got lost in the warp, their gala fields went off and this former loyalist group went a little bit crazy because of that. Maybe that's why their armor is not as corrupted as other Chaos Space Marines. Maybe you can help me choose a cool lore or even a cool name for them. The skinny parts of this just a second got my usual treatment of dark purple, Bugman's glow and elfic flesh. I carefully wet blended them into each other to get my beloved skin tone that looks somehow a little bit sickish but very much alive. So I still have 2 more guys left and I thought I want to have one Terminator with a banner and an amazing freehand maybe. And for the last one I really do not have an idea and hope that you guys can help me there. So if you have any suggestions on what to make with the last Terminator, feel free to comment and we build something together here. After that I painted the rest of the horns using dark rust and elfic flesh once again, in a 50-50 mix working myself up to a pure elfic flesh. now carefully apply some shades like Game Wash Sepia and Black onto the miniatures and give some random places of the armor an edge highlighting treatment with my old, ruined randomizing brush here, using Dark Rust. At this point, I really want to thank my amazing patrons who with their support make these videos possible. So if you also want to be a part of this, feel free to check it out, get access to my Discord server, voting power, behind the scenes material, and know what's to come on this channel way ahead. But back to the show now. To indicate something like a chipping effect, I applied a bright silver onto most of the parts where the dark rust is, not following a specific pattern. For the gold parts, I used light bronze by Pro Acryl once again. And by the way, the next one will be Logan Grimner. Feel free to give some ideas for him too. I already have some in mind, but a collective is always much better. I guess that's a very Tyranid thing to say, right? And for the last step, I used Gory Red to paint the eye lenses of the Terminator's helmet and some glow effects onto the weapons. Just applying set color and carefully adding a little bit of white into the red, wet blending them together. The only thing I'm not really happy with at this point are the bases. I guess I will get some milliput and 3D print myself some bits for more epic ones. I really do hope that you like this one, and sorry for all you Space Wolf fans that I butchered your minis. I will happily do it again. And with this final insult, I am going to say thanks a lot for watching, and we are going to see each other in the next one.